What's up, y'all? Welcome to What the Freak. I am super excited for today's guest, Zoey, my good friend and an incredible intuitive and businesswoman and just phenomenal human being. It's so good to have you here. Who are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you for your kind words. They are reciprocated in many, many ways. I'm Zoey Greco, also known as the Merhipsy. It's kind of a pseudonym that I go by. And I'm an intuitive development mentor, a podcast host, an oracle card creatrix. I've been working with thousands of clients over several years, being a spiritual advisor and an intuitive guide. And now I've really made the decision to step into more of the role of teacher. I also do sound healing with our very good friend Taryn Emmert. We are a sound healing duo called Rogue Reverie. I love wearing a lot of hats in my work because I believe that as an intuitive person, like that we're constantly receiving ideas and inspirations and like creative sparks. And I think life is more interesting when we pursue and experience as much as possible. So I really believe in like diversity and purpose. So I've tried to like kind of spread myself among a few things that really bring me like joy and excitement. Well, that's me in a nutshell.
Wow, I love it.
Oh, I'm an Aries. I'm 5 feet tall, and I love escape rooms. Some other fun facts about me.
Oh, really? What is it about escape rooms? Why do you love escape rooms? What draws you to that?
Well, first, let me just say that I've done almost 200.
Whoa, you're really into it.
I'm really into it.
Wow.
I do. I've done them in every country that I go visit. Every state that I go visit.
I didn't realize that was like a worldwide thing. I didn't know. Huh.
Escape rooms are probably my favorite thing ever. And I find that it challenges me, but it also gives me this amazing opportunity to really feed my inner child and like play pretend. So like, for instance, when we go with this like other couple, we've kind of like niched in and like the four of us are like, let's do this. We have like a team name and everything. And we went and did this Scooby-Doo themed escape room. And we decided to dress up as the characters. And while we were doing it, I was like, I am Velma. Like, I am her. Like, I was dropping jinkies left and right, you know, like zoinksing all over the place. And I was loving it. I was loving every second of it. And so, like, playing pretend and solving puzzles and using my brain in this really unique way. And I just find that so fascinating. And it's also really helped me develop, like, problem solving and resourcefulness and like help my brain begin to work in a different way than it usually does. So super passionate about it. I enjoy being competitive, but it's not the point of it. It's more like something to do, to bond over, to experience. And it's like probably my main hobby, I would say.
Wow. I didn't even know. That's awesome.
Fun facts about me.
Dope. Well, I'm super excited to dive into this piece around entrepreneurship and being a business owner and being just like a multi-passionate human being. That's another way I'd put that. I'm really curious to hear, there's kind of two places I'd love to go and hear more about. One is, what is the positive or light side of all of that? Like, what really stokes your fire and gives you energy and fulfillment out of wearing these many different hats and exploring many different paths. And then after that, I'd love to go into kind of the dark side of that, the dark side of being an entrepreneur. Maybe there's some resentment that you have towards your business at times. Would love to go into there next. But let's start off a little lighter. Let's start off with the positive side of things.
I think when I really think about, well, here's the thing. The answer would be different at different points in my career, right? Like when I first started my business, I think the answer I would give you would be different than the answer I would give you today. When I started my business, I would have been so satisfied to have, you know, just a single room to like put my hands on people and heal them and like pull their oracle cards. Like I had no idea how lofty my dreams could be, how big the vision could become. And I think the thing that lights me up is continuously feeling an invitation to expand into my fulfillment, like into my potential. That's like on a personal level, right? Like what I gain from it is just feeling like I'm constantly opening myself up to like what is possible within me, which is a very cool feeling. But I think obviously the work that I do specifically is really rewarding because I can't imagine, like I phrase it like raw dogging it. Like I can't imagine raw dogging it through life without your intuition. Like I don't know. I don't know how people just wander through the world without this like imperative roadmap, this like needle on your compass. Like I don't get how they can do that. And so I really feel after years and years and years of like being this bridge for people, of like being a translator basically for them to be able to communicate with their guides, I was like, why am I putting myself in the middle of these exchanges? Like, why am I not empowering people to like have this experience on their own, to just have that access whenever they want it? And that's when I decided to really like shift. But I just am so grateful for the opportunity to always be creative. I love branding. I love creating like an aesthetic for my business. I love letting that evolve as I evolve. Like where I started and where I am are very different brand vibes. And I enjoy like all the creative aspects of thinking things up, bringing them to life, collaborating with other creators, whether it's on an Oracle deck working with an artist, or whether it's, you know, doing my website, working with a designer, or whether it's having a conversation like this with another amazing person, right? Like just all those opportunities to bring something into the world, like to birth it, whether it's a conversation or, you know, a graphic asset, which I think is really fun and rewarding. In terms of the dark side, I started my business when I was about 23, and actually, I was being harassed by my boss at a place where I worked, and when I finally broke down and confessed that to people, like when I finally reported it, I was fired. And that was really interesting because the universe basically heard me every day saying like, I'm going to quit this job, and like not doing it. And so the universe was like, you're fired. You know, like I think they intervened on my behalf. And so I'm 23. I've only ever had one adult job. I'm like basically fresh out of college. Like, you know, I'm a lost baby. And I started this business and became successful like relatively quickly. And I spent my entire 20s doing what most of my friends would end up doing in their 30s. So I became so self-identified with my business and the success of it that became the defining characteristic in my life. And it also became the thing where I think for the first time ever, I felt I was receiving praise without a double-edged sword of criticism. So like I was like the boss friend, the business friend, the successful friend. Like I had money to blow and I would treat my friends and I would take them places. I would do things like the money became a measure of my worth in my mind. And that was very dangerous. And I'm really only just beginning to like undo that damage. And I also think that not only was it the money, but it was also the idea that my whole personality was like who I am as a business owner. Like I built walls between, like I lost my ability to be vulnerable is the best way to put it, because I was so used to drawing boundaries with like clients or collaborators or whatever. Like I felt like I had to be a certain way. I had to like appear healed and whole and perfect and whatever in order to like be worthy of doing that for other people. And so I just denied myself for such a long time. But it's very addictive, I think, to have that kind of freedom, like to work for yourself, to work from home. Like I don't even remember the last time I was in an office. Like I don't know, you know, like I haven't experienced that in so long. Haven't worked for anybody else. There's like, you get addicted, I think, to that freedom, to the financial freedom. But for me, I was addicted to the praise, because every other place in my life, I'm too much. Like I love the way Zoey dresses, but it's very extra. Or like, oh, you know, Zoey's so fun, but like she's really loud. Like there's always like a double edge to that sword. But this was the one place where it was like solely praise, and that became very addicting and like comforting and like a safe place for me to be energetically. And so I was actually talking to my therapist about this not long ago. And she was like, well, where do you think, these ideas, the ideologies came from that you're suffering from? And I was like, my business. Like, I didn't feel these things before I started a business. And I think, we only talk about like the upside of entrepreneurship because we're all so afraid to confess the negatives, because it means that either we're, quote unquote failing, or like we're not as successful as we want people to think we are. Like owning a business is so much about like creating a persona and an appearance and like seeming more successful than you are. And for what? Like, what's the, what's the point of that? So I think those are the things that caused me to feel traumatized. Like my owning a business has been traumatizing as much as it's been rewarding.
And when did you start to realize that your business was traumatizing?
You know what's crazy? As we're talking about this, I'm getting emotional. Like I can feel like I want to cry because I'm feeling the emotion of it. But I think I would say probably in the middle of 2020, no surprise, I found out that I have PCOS, and it was like causing all of these, it was polycystic ovarian syndrome for people out there. And I had been sick for so long. I'd had acne, like severe cystic acne my entire adult life. Like always sick, weight fluctuating, mood fluctuations, just like so much discomfort in my body. And I realized that I had been putting all of my focus on my business to the detriment of my body. Like my adrenals were shot, my nervous system was shot, everything was broken. And at that point, I decided to stop doing client work altogether and just focus on my mentorship program, my podcast, like the things that made me feel better. And people don't talk about this a lot, but being a professional intuitive was for me extremely anxiety provoking. I felt like anxious every morning when I woke up and I had clients on my schedule, which, toward the end especially, I was booked all day, every day. Like, I was making a fuck ton of money and I was so successful, but I was miserable and anxious and afraid all the time because people basically are coming to you like, what do I do? Fix my life. Tell me what to do. It's not like therapy where you go and you like want to look inside yourself and like see what's there. It's like, tell me what to do. Is he going to come back to me? When am I going to get the job that I want? What should I do with my life? And it's like, they're strangers. Like, I don't know these people, and I have to basically like pull these answers from the ethers and like fix their entire life. And the other thing too is like, you have to prove yourself, right? Because you can't just like people want to believe that you can just like provide them with any answer in the world, which you can. But it's hard to explain. Like sometimes they'll come with like skepticism. They'll be like, give me these answers, but I don't even believe you can. And it's like, then why are you here? Because that energy is a huge block. Like, you're right. I can't know anything about you if you're going to come in with that energy. So it was just like extremely toward the end, like I was just sick all the time from just anxiety. Like even talking about it, I can like feel it in my body. And
now, did you have like any rituals where like after sessions you would like cleanse and clear and all of that?
Good question. No, because I was so emotionally exhausted that all I wanted to do was like just go lay down. It was like, oh, thank God it's over. Like, oh, I just want like I couldn't even like muster self-care. And that was when I realized like, okay, this is imbalanced. And I think if I'd been practicing better spiritual hygiene like along the way, it might not have been that way. But I also think too, like we reach like a boiling point inside of ourselves. Like we reach like, sometimes we just have to be made so uncomfortable to realize that something isn't working. And I knew it was time for me to stop doing that kind of work. But I was afraid because just for the same reason that, clients I talk to all the time are afraid to quit their corporate jobs. Like I was making bank, doing something that no one thought I could be successful at. Not because I wasn't good at it, but because it's not a real career, or like I was supposed to go to medical school or like whatever. And it was such a satisfying, like I showed you I could do this, and look how worthy I am, and look how much people appreciate me, and blah, 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 blah. Like it was almost like food for my ego, right? And also like the only way I felt like I could validate myself. And that's really hard to admit because the work I was doing was meaningful and like it was helping people. And that was the other thing that really was hard, was like there are people who count on me. Like, how can I just walk away from them, you know? But I knew that like I was sick in my body and sick in my soul. And like, and it's not my business, right? Like, it's not my business that made me sick. It's the way that I existed inside of it. And I felt like I didn't deserve to feel that way, and my business didn't deserve that. Because, like, it's a beautiful entity. Like, it's a beautiful thing. But sharing that or, like, talking about that and discussing that felt not just, like, scary, but, like, unallowed, not okay. Like, like I wasn't supposed to tell people that I was unhappy because my job was to help them be happy, you know? So I completely lost my ability to experience vulnerability. I completely lost my ability to recognize the signs of like my body and my spirit. And I'm honestly like just recovering from that in a very like conscious way. And it's hard work because it's all shadow work, right? Like, I have to go into those like hard spaces because I was enjoying all the good stuff about my career all along, but I wasn't really dealing with or facing the hard things. So now that I'm like, I think that that's the case. Like, I think it's easier to examine the shadow and examine our trauma when it's not happening, like when we can get a little space from it. Like, okay, it's like, you know, after an attack, like, I don't think during an attack you can be like, I'm being traumatized. Like, this trauma is occurring to me. Like, it's not until we're separated from the event that we can go, whoa, that was a lot. Like, that was an intense experience. And so I think when I decided to take that step away from my health, it all came crashing down. And it was like, you've been really unhappy. Like, oh, interesting. I didn't really notice, even though I was anxious all day long, never put those pieces together. I'm curious to know if you've ever had that type of relationship with any of your projects.
Yeah. First, I just want to thank you for sharing all of that. And now this is totally a safe space to share that. And I totally feel you on the talking about this kind of thing, like not even being allowed.
Yeah.
Like, that's so big. Like, when you feel forced to suppress something
Yeah.
and not welcome to share your honest truth and experience.
Yeah.
That's such a heavy burden to carry. And I really just honor you in getting honest with yourself and with your experience and giving yourself the space to heal and to rest and to recover and to really honor your body for what it's been through.
Thank you. I feel that. And it is hard. So I appreciate the recognition because it's really tough. But it's so important. And I am feeling better as I move through it.
Yeah, and I say all that too because I relate. I relate to basically everything you just talked about, maybe in a slightly different context in my own way. But I've actually had a lot of resentment I've held towards my business, which, funny enough, I also was let go from a job in 2013 and then started my business after that.
Isn't that the way it always works? The universe is like, hey, we got something else for you.
It's like, I don't want to be here. I have no idea what's next, but I just know that I'm a no to this. So the universe found me a way out of there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't easy. I had a bit of a different path. I didn't find immediate success in my business. It's taken many years for me to just more recently find, well, certain outer successes, a little bit more financial success and such. But I've had a lot of resentment towards my business because I had to put my body through so much. And, me also doing coaching work now, I can relate to like opening your world up to someone, your energy up to someone who you don't really know that well. That's a lot. Like you're like crossing deep threads with them and deep wires and like almost like having to build like this instant, intimate type connection with this person who, like you said, might even be coming with skepticism or like being closed off. Like that's all. And there's like money on the line and like, give me the results and like, that's a lot to hold. And I just really want to honor you for that.
Thank you.
And say like, wow, like that is a lot.
Well, likewise.
Probably not recognized, it's like you're just supposed to show up and do the work and that's what people are paying for, but they probably have no idea what's going on your end and how much it is to hold space in that way. Just to hold space in that way is a lot. So, for me, I guess one of the biggest pieces that's coming up is I've had many phases of my business where I've harbored resentment and just wanted to be done with it. And I'm just like, I hate this right now. Like,
how many
is
times
awful.
Have you thought, I'm going to quit and go work at like, for me, it's always like, I'm going to quit and go work at Free People so I can get the employee discount on the clothes I like. That's always been my thing. Like, I'm just going to go fucking work retail. Like, I can't do this. What's been your like dream escape plan?
Oh man, my dream escape plan. Honestly, just like not doing anything. Like I don't know. I didn't have a specific escape plan. Like I always knew I'm like, well, I don't really want to be doing anything else, but also I'm really not enjoying this experience right now. Like some piece of this experience, I'm just like, fuck this. Like
words right out of my own mouth. Like people have asked me, like, well, what else would you do? I'm like, I don't fucking know. Like, probably nothing. Like, this is my calling. Like, what else do you want from me? So I can completely relate to that. Like, I don't want to do this, but it is my calling. Like,
yeah, I'm not going to go back to a marketing agency. That's for sure. I'm not. I can't cut the 9-to-5 desk life. That's not for me. But yeah, I think for me, it's been hard, especially because, I think in how I relate to some of what you were talking about, like having to put on this image and having to look like you're the one who people can count on and trust and is successful. It's like, that's kind of how I feel with, my employees or even just the overall image of my brand. It's like, I'm supposed to be like the leader, and I'm supposed to be like inspiring, the people around me. And why would anyone want to work with me if I'm hating my business
right.
and I'm like sad or I'm just like depressed or exhausted? It's like no one's going to want to be around that kind of energy. At least that's what I felt.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't feel like there was any space for me to express that, and then also being in the shadow of my older brother's footsteps, who's a just phenomenal entrepreneur. And I would very much compare myself to him a lot, which I've gotten much better about not doing and just playing my own game and being my own person. Which is so much healthier.
Healthier.
Much healthier. Comparison is awful. It only leads to bad things, really. But yeah, like there's been many moments where I'm like, this is it. Like I'm at my capacity. I'm done. I literally just hit another moment last night where I was just like, I just want to quit. Like, and it's crazy because literally everything in my business is so positive right now. Like everything is going in a good direction. All the pieces are falling in place for us to expand to the next level. And it's super uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable. And I just want to like run away and I just want to quit and I just want to be like, oh man, like I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. Like it's so much. Yeah. I'm still doing a lot of things that I just really don't enjoy in my business. And, and yet I believe in it so much at the same time. It's kind of a mind fuck where I'm like, I love this business. I love this brand.
Oh, yeah.
I love what we're about. I love the people I get to work with and serve. I love the way that it positively impacts so many people's lives.
Your product is incredible.
Dope
yeah,
pizza,
it's so good. I was just gonna say, like, it really is my favorite pizza. It's so good.
Me too. I like really don't eat other pizza now. Like,
how could you? The bar is so high. I get that.
It's a trip, and that's I think something I didn't really understand until more recent years is that it's actually okay and part of the human experience to have two different experiences happening simultaneously. That's like part of living in a dualistic universe is two things can be true
in a dualistic soul,
at the same time. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like inside of me, I can have an authentic experience of feeling depressed and down and frustrated.
Heavy.
And also like so grateful and so blessed and so happy and so excited.
Oh, yeah.
And both of those are happening at the same time, and both of them are true.
You know, you just really reminded me of this thought that entrepreneurship is lonely as fuck. Like, how lonely have you been? Like when I think about it, like when you were talking, I was thinking, holy shit, one of my dearest friends, I had no idea you were feeling the things that I've been feeling too. And it's because we're so busy putting on these personas, we're so busy running these businesses, letting these businesses run us. But also, like, when I think of my circle of friends, I'm actually very fortunate to know a lot of entrepreneurs. But, when we both started our businesses young. Like, when I'm in my early 20s, my friends are just scraping by. Like, they can't relate at all to my experience, like, in any way. My family can't relate to my experience. Like, I actually remember I had a conversation with my dad when I was, like, really in a bad space. And I was just like, it makes me so unhappy. Like, I'm so unhappy. And he was like, well, your job's not supposed to make you happy. And I was like, spoken by a true attorney who has hated being an attorney since he started. And my dad has, like, a very similar story. Like, he's one of the most successful attorneys in New York City. Like, on the list of super lawyers every year, bringing in multi-million-dollar settlements for his firm, ascending to, senior partner. Fucking hates it. He's hated it the whole time. And I thought to myself, I don't want your advice. You're not the person to talk to about this. So it's just a very, like, lonesome experience. And I heard you, saying that, your brother also had his own business, but because you were placing yourself in a position of comparison, you almost don't want to go to him because it's like, I don't want to admit my vulnerabilities. I don't want to admit that I'm having a hard time when you're having such an easy time, it seems, right? Like, did you ever feel like you couldn't talk to him or like you didn't want to?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting question. And one, I just want to say, I also say fuck that to the perspective that you have to hate your job.
Oh, yeah. No.
Like, yeah,
for all the listeners, that's wrong.
Yeah, it's totally wrong.
My dad's wrong.
There's so much more available there.
Oh, yeah.
And like I don't want to live my life hating my job, and so I'm constantly figuring out like why do I hate certain aspects of what I do, and how can I improve that, and how can I make that better, and how can I change there.
Absolutely.
But the core of what I do, I love, and that is important. And I would have quit a long time ago if that weren't the case.
Definitely.
So. But back to your question. Oh my God, what was your question?
It was about whether or not you felt like you could go to people around you, like your brother, for instance, without feeling vulnerable because of the comparisons.
Yeah, so there's a couple pieces for me to unpack there. One is my brother operates just in a very different way than I do. He shows up in the world in a very different way.
Yeah.
And for me to try to come to him with certain challenges, he would try to approach them from his perspective, which it wasn't always what I needed.
Yeah.
And the perspective that was actually valuable and useful for me.
Yeah.
Not that it was anything wrong with it. It's just it wasn't what I actually needed in that moment. And there were things that he would give with me that would be helpful, but then other things wouldn't be as helpful. So it's like I think with any person, you can only take so much from that person because they have a specific context and understanding and way of operating, a certain energy about them, that certain pieces of feedback can be useful and other pieces might not be resonant. So it's like I always check in with myself and see, is this helpful? Is this useful? Does this resonate? Or does it not? Yeah. And is there actually something else here? So I think that's something I've learned over time. I mean, my brother's also my business partner in the business. Right. So there's that whole piece. And then we lived together for like 3 years. So that was a whole nother piece. So there was just so many different crossed wires there that it was often challenging to navigate those. But I also feel really called in this life to figure out how to navigate those type of challenging relationships where there's so many different chords being crossed. And like, how do we unwind them all? How do we untie them? And how do we find a more harmonious interaction where we are interacting in the highest way possible and we aren't interacting in ways that are actually not helpful or useful to either of us.
When I hear that, it brings to mind the image of like an instrument. And like if you had a piano, you can't play every note all at once. It sounds chaotic and heavy and like it's just like intense. But if you can like find the notes and like find the melody, like it feels more peaceful. So I think I hope this makes sense to you, but like what I heard you really saying was like there's certain ways to approach these dynamics and these relationships, and like certain things to take away from it, and other things that you don't necessarily have to play, like certain notes you don't have to play. And I think that's a really important idea, is like approaching a relationship like an instrument, like learning how to play it and learning like what chords create harmony and what create dissonance. And like there's a really interesting concept actually, especially in a very like multi-dimensional relationship like that, where your family, business partners, roommates, like, you know, have been all these, you know, different experiences of like to each other. Because if you think about it, like you wouldn't necessarily relate to a roommate the way you would relate to a family member, but like, or a business partner, you know, God forbid. But to do all those things with one person is like very intense, and probably a trauma experience in its own that you've had to resolve for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that analogy. And yeah, I think there's certain, you know, each person's their own instrument, and there's certain melodies and harmonies that are going to go good together, and there's others that are not. Like there's certain notes you're going to be able to play together and other notes that you're not, that maybe you're better playing those songs or those harmonies with somebody else.
Yes.
And then there's a natural resonance there. But the more you try to make dissonant frequencies try to come together, the more they're just going to clash.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work.
Ooh, sorry, I have really
Jinx.
big rings and they keep clomping
That's
the
okay,
table.
we can make noise.
I wear giant jewelry and they're just bonking on the table. What do you feel has been the most fulfilling or rewarding relationship that you've had with your business? Like what do you gain the most from it?
I think for me, the most rewarding aspect of my business is getting to see the people who work with us, to see their lives transform, to see them evolve, to see them refine themselves, see themselves step into their next level. Honestly, I'm a people person first.
Yeah.
I'm about human connection, human experience, transformation.
Yeah.
And as far as I'm concerned, our business, as much as we are a restaurant and we serve food and that's what we sell and that's what people pay money for and that's our craft, I think that's honestly secondary to what our business is really all about. And our business is really, and this is a term I just recently started utilizing, one in my own personal coaching practice, as well as how I would identify the core of what my business is, which is we are a self-actualization vehicle. We're a self-actualization organization and support structure that allows human beings to find their greatest potential and highest human experience through interacting with us in some way, whether that's working with us in the coaching and mentorship and development I get to do with our staff, our people who work for us, who support the business in being what it is, or through our customers who get to interact with my staff and eat and enjoy our food that we pour a lot into, and they get to have their own experience through that food and everything that we've infused into that food. It shifts someone's energy, it shifts their day, and they're a little bit changed from the experience. It's not just another meal down the hatches. It's like, at least our goal and what we continue to work towards is, wow, like, and maybe this sounds funny, but like, this pizza changed my life.
Yeah.
You know, that's my goal. That's my ultimate goal with the business, is that it's life-changing pizza and like a life-changing experience that you have every time that you come and dine with us, like a life-changing experience, even in just a small way. Maybe that's the only positive blip in somebody's day. Maybe they have a job they don't enjoy, their boss is breathing down their neck, they're going home to a a home situation that isn't ideal for them.
Yeah.
They have other challenges. Maybe that interaction with our staff, and that maybe that's the one person who's actually given them a genuine smile and be like, hey, how are you?
Oh, yeah.
And then that food is like the one thing that makes their body actually feel good for at least a little while in that day.
You're enjoying it. My mood is extremely affected by food. Like, if I don't like my food, I'm going to throw a bitch fit. Like, not at a restaurant or at people, just like if I'm, eating it at home or get it home or something, I'm like, this has pickles on it. I said no pickles. Like, my food really affects my mood. And so I feel like when you sit down and you're just like vibing, you're like, this pizza fucking slaps. Like, yes, it really is a vibe raiser. And I really love that you said that you guys infuse the energy. Like, you infuse the food with like this experience. And it's funny because when I asked you the question, we've never discussed this, but I knew what your answer would be, because you're right. You are a people person. You're a people person and then a pizza person.
Yes.
And I think that's like, so like, just knowing you, I feel like that's obvious. Like, hiring people, giving people employment, like giving them livelihood. Like that's huge. That's literally so huge. Like, to be a business and be able to hire people is like actually a huge achievement. It's like a huge milestone.
And responsibility as well, right? It's
leadership. Like,
it's a lot. It's like I'm not a parent to a small human child,
right?
But I feel like I've developed a lot of fatherly qualities and have had to really step into that archetype.
Yeah.
I think I'm actually becoming grandpa at this point. But yeah, it's a lot. Like I don't take that lightly, and it really is like such a meaningful piece of what I do, and is so important. And I really take it from that perspective of like, wow, like I am, I might be one of the most influential people in some of these human beings' lives who work with me, and like I have a responsibility to be that positive beacon in their light, and to be a leader and help them to make better whatever situation they might be in, and give them something to look forward to. And I think that there's just such an opportunity there to really make a difference in people's lives that I don't see, and this isn't a judgment, but like I just don't see a lot of other employers taking the same level of responsibility of like what the opportunity is here. And you can either make someone's life worse every day when they come to work based on how you treat them, based on how you structure the business, based on what your purpose and your goals and your mission is, or you can make a positive difference on the people's lives who show up. Maybe it's not the ultimate thing they want to do. I'm sure that a lot of the people who work for us probably don't want to be making pizzas the rest of their life. Some of them would love to do that for quite some time.
For sure.
But not all of them. But even if they're only with me for a period of time, how can I make a positive impact on their journey, that they're grateful for the experience, that they learned something, they grew in some way, they contributed something to the collective of our business so the business can keep getting better, and then they're better set up for whatever their next step is. And, I'm curious to hear, to kind of give you back that same question, what is it that maybe even just more currently, what gives you the most fulfillment or joy out of your business? Like, what is it that really keeps you coming back to it and is like most meaningful for you?
Well, first, I just want to say that there's two things that came to my mind. First, you're setting a standard for your employees that they will not accept mistreatment or disrespect from future employers that they might work for later. Like, let's say they change industries completely. They're chasing their dreams that don't involve pizza, and they're, in a different direction. Because of the experience they've had with you, they're not going to accept certain types of treatment. And I have so many friends who are in really successful positions who are overworked, underpaid, working, 100 hours a week, truly, like just insane hours. And it's because they've never had a boss like you who taught them that they're allowed to take breaks, focus on their mental health, like that they deserve, days off. Like, you put your people first, not your business first, which makes your people put your business first, which I think is like a really good philosophy. And I just wanted to comment on that, and also to say that having that attitude and that philosophy and those values, I think is extremely expansive and potentially limiting, but in a positive way, because you can't scale a business like to a certain point without losing that human touch, you know? And I feel like it creates so much positivity, but also like keeps you from selling out or like, you know, losing reality with your business. So I just thought those were really interesting things that came to mind as you were talking about that.
I want to come back to that. I'm just putting a little anchor point in that point because there's more I want to dive into there. But I want to hear your answer to this first.
So the thing that keeps me coming back, it makes me feel like, you know, I break up with a boyfriend. I'm like, he just keeps getting me back. He's calling me back. Well, first of all, I would love to say that I would never leave my business. Like, I can't necessarily come back to something I never left. Like, I feel extremely intimately connected to my business, like, to the point that I've given it all I've got and then some, right? Like, to the point that I gave it too much. But, you know, recently I did like a whole website redo, rebrand, invested like so much money, painful amounts of money. And the question became like, do you want to rename the business? Because Merhipsy is technically a portmanteau of the words mermaid, hippie, and gypsy, which is actually a slur. At the time that I did that, it wasn't considered one, but now gypsy is not a word you're supposed to say about people, and not a word you're supposed to use to describe them. And so I've removed that word kind of from the definition of it now. If you search back far enough in my Instagram, I'm sure you can find evidence, but, you know, I've taken accountability for that. But I refuse to release it because, like, Merhipsy is a person. She's a part of me. She's, you know, this part of me that I discovered when I was 20 years old that, like, I love. Like, I love her. It makes me emotional. Like, I love her so much. And I feel like she deserves to be expressed and, like, live her life and, like, fulfill her calling. But also, I do know that the work is extremely impactful. Like, I hear from people, you know, every single day, like, this is what I needed to hear. This is what I needed to know. Like, this is what I needed to learn. This has set me free. This has given me so much, whether it's, you know, training people in sound healing who eventually create a whole career out of it, or helping people develop their intuition so they can know where to turn in their lives and, like, how to find their happiness, or whether it's holding a session with someone where they finally feel seen or heard for the first time in their life. Like, so often I feel like people will say, they'll describe my work in a couple ways, that it's extremely compassionate and loving. So I feel like people don't experience enough, like, non-judgmental, compassionate, unconditional acceptance outside in the world. So I try to create a container for that. But also, I think I might be the first person in some people's lives who says, like, it's okay to feel this way. Like, it's okay to want to quit your job. It's okay to want to be an astrologist. Like, it's okay to want to do these things or have these dreams or be this person, like, express your inner self. And I think that actually goes back to why I felt so much responsibility to seem like I was happy. Because it's like I'm guiding people into sometimes very similar life paths, you know, and it's like, I don't want you to think it's bad. It's not bad. I don't want you to think this is like just a source of unhappiness. So I felt a lot of responsibility to be like, I can do it. You can too, you know? But I do really appreciate making people feel seen and heard, and giving them permission to feel and become expressed.
Wow.
It's big work.
Yeah.
I'm also actually a really big advocate for spiritual entrepreneurship being extremely valuable work. So I've received a lot of criticism over my career about, like, my prices or whatever, or even just charging in general. You'll hear so often, like, spiritual work should be free. Like, the fuck it should. Do you know how hard this is? Like, I feel like I'm in the coal mines, you know, like looking for gold, like, whatever. Like, it's rough out there, you know? And so I feel like I'm a very big proponent for, like, charge what you're worth. Like, you're literally transforming the planet. Like, every healer is out here helping other people become conscious. Like we're on the precipice of a new earth, and like everyone's waking up, and healers are the people that are like, hey, welcome, you finally woke up. Like you've been living in a coma for 25 years and like you've been really unhappy, and now you finally can be more in touch with yourself or do this or do that. That's extremely valuable. And so another reason I felt a responsibility to be successful was to be an example of like, you can be a professional intuitive and you can make money and you can take care of yourself and you can do philanthropic work. You can be generous. You can be so abundant beyond your wildest dreams, doing something that is good for yourself and good for other people. And so I've had a lot of discussions about that. And people don't like discussing money in general. It's like very taboo. But I'm not like that at all. I'm like, you want to see my financials? You want to hear about it? You want to talk about it? Like, this is a good month. This was a bad month. Here's why. Like, I really think transparency with money is super important. And I want to just like remove the stigma around money in the spiritual community because I just think it's really stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really important work. And I really want to touch in on the point you're talking about of that moment where for someone, it might be the first time they could actually be seen, be heard, be felt, be vulnerable, to really share their truth and receive a positive reflection. That's so big.
It's huge.
Like, how many people don't have even one person in their life who they can really just like open their heart and share what's actually there and share the pain, share the challenge, the struggle that other people just don't see or don't care or don't have space for that in the day-to-day busyness of everybody going through their stuff. Yeah. Like, that's such a gift to create that space for someone. And I feel like it is so needed. Like, look what happened when we had this collective slowdown, this collective reset.
Oh, yeah.
Because we were just go, 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 go. To me, it's almost inevitable that something like this just happen.
Absolutely.
If we actually want to create any kind of future for our species, we needed to be like, yo, stop, pause, slow down, and take a little time to notice the ladder you're climbing up. And is it even up against the right wall? Do you even want to
be on this ladder?
Climbing on? And there's so many people, right? Like, who right now are changing careers, who are stopping what they're doing, or even saying like, I don't know what's next, but I know that this isn't
not this.
it.
Yes.
I'm no longer willing to accept this because I've been running on a hamster wheel and I'm not willing to do it anymore.
You know, I think that's such a good point, and we see this pandemic persisting. We're officially 2 years in. Like, we're just, 2 months away from 2 years in. And it's because we haven't been able to get everyone to stop, to slow down. Like, it's still spreading because people are refusing to acknowledge or give into the pause, right? Like, they want to keep going to big shows, or they want to keep doing these things. Like, they're holding on to what normal used to be. And it's like, we can actually get back there sooner if you just stop. Like, just take a breather, bud. So I think that's been a really powerful thing to witness, like, the surrender and the resistance to, like, the invitation that's been created. Yeah, I mean, we could have a whole episode on COVID.
Totally. Maybe we'll shy away from that for now.
Yeah, but I do think it's an interesting invitation, and I think you made a really valid point, which is we've needed it, and yet some of us are still resisting it.
Yeah, and I also really relate to what you were talking about as well. Of, I think for me, how I designed my business was really first and foremost for myself, because I didn't feel safe in other work environments. I didn't feel like I was accepted there. I never felt like I could be at home and be at peace and just be supported. Yeah. Working in another restaurant, it's like it was so cutthroat, so step on each other's toes. It's like nobody had your back. Or like maybe one or two people did, but it was like, for the most part, is like we were just all slaves to this machine and bigger thing, and it's just like I never really had a place that I fit in, that I could just be myself and bring all of me.
Yeah.
Not that there aren't also certain professional boundaries and standards that need to be set when you're at work, but it's like, man, people are told, like, leave yourself at the door every single day and you spend 8 hours a day there, that's too much to ask. That's so much to ask of people. And why can't we create work environments where people can show up and be themselves? Yeah. Why can't we create spaces where people can feel safe and like the people around them have their back?
Yeah.
I feel such a calling to be a protector because I never felt protected. No matter, I had 2 very loving parents. I grew up in a relatively safe neighborhood, and yet internally, I never felt safe. And I got severely bullied physically and emotionally growing up. And I just never felt safe within myself. Yeah. And I never felt safe in the spaces other people created. Yeah. So I think I had to create that for myself. And then the people who are also looking for that are the ones who are, I think, attracted to work with us. And that's why they enjoy working with us. And that's why they stay working with us and why our retention is great. We just had an all-team meeting a few weeks ago, and there was a handful of people in the room who've been with us for 3 to 5 years.
That's amazing.
Which for like an early startup restaurant, like that's, the turnover is 100% in the restaurant industry. Every 100%. Year, 100% turnover. Like you go through a whole crew of people and it's like, man, like there's really something we're doing that's different here that is really needed.
Yeah.
And that is beyond, right, just food. It's beyond just being a restaurant. And I just really appreciate that, what I heard is you create that space for people to feel safe within themselves, maybe for the first time.
Yeah. I hear that very frequently. I actually had a really interesting reading experience not long ago for someone that was a client on my podcast. And it was a really weird day because I had her scheduled for the day and then also a meeting with someone I was hiring for a position. And the client and I were born on the same day, the same year, same time, basically. Wow. Like on different parts of the country, but like the same time. And it was weird because that reading was unique because like cosmically we're just very similar people because of like literally our birth, right? Like we came to this earth like in a similar archetype. And she said, I've never had anyone see me. Like I've never felt so seen and so emotional today, which is fine. Being emotional is fine.
It's great.
It's such a rewarding feeling to be able to do that for people. But the thing I think people don't know is that when you're doing this work and you are looking at people's souls, you just fall in love with them because you're seeing them like from the perspective of their angels, their guides, like the universe, like in this unconditional way, And so like I love every single person I've ever worked with. Like I love them, I care about them, I only want them to be happy. And it's like having like thousands and thousands and thousands of friends, It's a lot of Christmas gifts to buy. It's a lot of people to think about. And so even though like I've gotten much better at like my spiritual hygiene and like I'm clearing and I'm like taking care of myself between sessions and like really tuning into myself, you still carry that love for them. Like you still, like you might not carry like the weight or the heaviness of their problems or whatever, but like I actually did a session with a shaman to do like a soul retrieval, shamanic soul retrieval. And while I was on the table, like one of my clients came to mind and I was like, get out of here, dude. Like I'm getting healed. Like get out of here. And then another client came to mind. I was like, no, you too. Vamoose, like get out. And all of a sudden I saw this golden light raining up from my body into the sky. And it was just golden raindrops just floating from my body up to the sky. And I realized it was everyone I'd ever worked with. It was all the people I'd ever worked with that I hadn't cleared out of my energy. And no wonder I had separated myself. No wonder I had like begun to disassociate from my body and my spirit and, having these trauma responses. It was too crowded, like my body was crowded from the people that I was taking care of. And so I think like probably the most valuable lesson I've learned is you can do the work but you have to, and you can love the people. Like, you can hold the love, but you can't hold the worries. You can't hold the burdens. You can't hold the problems. And I used to walk around worried about my clients. Like, man, I hope she finally leaves that relationship. Or like, hope like her job interview goes well. Hope she passes her LSATs. Like, that's just too many people to be constantly worried about. So, you know, I think like love is a very unifying and connecting thread, but you have to love people without the burden of like holding their burdens, you know. And that was like a really valuable lesson. See them, love them, but like let them go. And that's tough. It's tough to do that. It's tough to, because as an empathetic person, as a compassionate person, you want to hold people's burdens for them. You want to hold their wounds. You want to take the weight off of them. But you can't do your own internal work if you don't have, you can't do your shadow work without your shadow, right? Like, you can't look at something that someone else is holding for you. And so the greatest thing we can do, and I just had this conversation with my mom this morning, like the greatest thing we can do for other people is give them back their pain, give them back their burdens, give them back their shadow, their trauma, their suffering, so they can really like do their work, you know?
Wow. That's so powerful. And one thing I heard you describing there was almost like this shadow aspect of the mother. The mother that's just worrying, it's just like constantly worrying, where I think ultimately the intention, right, is love and care,
nurture,
empathy, nurture. Like, I just want you, like,
Totally.
There's nothing but love beaming from that.
Totally.
And there's attachment, and there's actually a lack of trust that person is going to be taken care of.
Yeah, or that they can take care of themselves.
Yeah.
Which is something that I've been very bad at, especially in my friendships. Like, I'll fight battles for people, or I'll, you know, make decisions for people. And that's another thing is, like, when you have thousands of people asking you to solve their problems, you think like, oh, people want me to solve their problems. So then, like, you know, there was an instance with Taryn and I once where we had collaborated with someone, and this person was like really mean to Taryn. And I was like, you got to stand up for yourself. And she was like, no, it's okay. Like, you know, just live and let live. And I'm like, no, man, that person's being a grade A bitch. Like, I'm not going to let someone talk to you like that and treat you like that. And I had to learn, like, she will fight her own battles and she can pick her own battles. Like, I don't get to decide that for her, you know? And it's the same way, like, I have friends who, like, I have this one friend I'm thinking of who's like, can you go through my closet and tell me what to get rid of and what to keep? Because I, like, really want to dress like you. I want to be, like, fashionable like you. And I'm like, I really, like, in the past I would have been like, yes, let's go through every item. Like, I will help you, whatever you want me to do. And now I pose the question, she'll, like, send me things like, should I buy these shoes? And I'm like, do you like them? Like, do you want them? Like, that's something I've had to unlearn, is, like, solving everyone's problems for them. And that's tough. That's a tough thing to unlearn.
Yeah, there's this fine line between being a support to someone and having to be their hero, which ultimately, if you're playing the hero role, right, like, you're making them a victim.
Totally.
And you're actually not seeing them in an empowered state.
100%.
You're not seeing them as a sovereign human being who is capable of figuring out their own problems and actually is the best person to find their own best solutions. So I love how you described the transition you've made in your business, where you're like, wait, hold up. Let me take a step back here and stop trying to solve people's problems for them and give them more of the tools and empowerment for them to solve their own problems, for them to tune into their own guidance, for them to, for themselves, build their own support systems so they're not directly relying upon you as the gatekeeper to their solutions. That's beautiful.
You know, I never saw that as, like, a self-serving thing. It's always been about, like, you deserve to have this experience. Like, being able to ask your guides things and have an answer immediately is, like, dope. Like, it's fucking dope. It's lit. And, like, you deserve this. You deserve to have this. You deserve this experience. And I never even realized, like, there was probably a part of me that was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't solve these problems. I can't be this channel for everybody. Like, I have to give them this power so that I don't have to like do it. You know what I mean? I never really thought about that until I just heard you talking. Not that you accused me of that in any way, but I never realized like exactly how self-supportive that shift is as well. And I do feel lighter, and I don't enter into my experiences with anxiety anymore. And like I get so excited to have client sessions, and I get so excited like, and they're even better now. Like they're even cooler now because I'm going into it with like just so much positivity and excitement and openness. And also I think because I now have people coming to me because of my podcast, it's like they've heard a client session, they've listened to me work, the skepticism is already kind of tabled because they're like, oh, I'm a fan, I want to work with you, like I'm excited to work with you. And so like they just enter with better energy as well. So like the whole dynamic has like shifted. And now I feel just excitement and freedom and joy. And now I'm back to loving it. I'm back to loving what I do. Because I redefined it.
Yeah, that's huge. And there was something I anchored in early on in the session. I'm trying to remember what it is.
I remember exactly what it was. I had said that I could see how trying to maintain those values could prevent scaling to a degree.
Yes.
And how that could actually be a good thing. Because I think at some point, if you get so big, like you can't be daddy to like 100 kids. You know what I mean? Like if you have 100 locations, like how can you really make sure that whatever, and we see this, like this is like the premise of Undercover Boss, right? Like they go into their businesses and they're like, I had no idea we were treating people this badly, like, or I had no idea there was hair in the corn dogs, whatever, you know, like they're shooketh at like what has happened in their business.
Shooketh, I like that.
Shooketh.
Yeah, that's huge. And when you said the word reframe, it like brought me back to the energy of that. So I love that we've had this space to kind of share the good and the bad, like, right, the light and the dark of running a business.
Yeah.
And just our personal experience. I feel like that's something still that I want even more space to get to talk about, like, is my personal experience as a business owner. Because I feel like it's kind of like, you know, even in entrepreneurial circles, there's still only certain things that are more acceptable to talk about. It's like, I want to talk about my total experience, the good, the bad, the ugly, the amazing.
Fake.
Like,
it's some fake ass shit. I don't want to say that, but like,
there's a lot of it out there is very, very surface, very just like, it's there's not as much depth as actually satisfies me to discuss. So I love this topic of the whole scaling challenge, because that's literally what we're going through right now. And I have this belief, because I see most businesses that scale, they get watered down. Mm-hmm. They get disconnected from the essence of what made that business special and unique, and whatever typical ways we have in our business culture to scale, it's like you lose something. Mm-hmm. I have a theory that doesn't need to be the case. Mm-hmm. And I think there are certain examples that like certain businesses have done that to better degrees. Mm-hmm. But what I'm going for is something entirely different that I actually haven't really seen, which is not only do I want to maintain the potency of what we're doing and maintain the connection to our essence, I actually desire for our potency to increase as we grow. But in order to do that, it takes a lot of patience, and it takes a lot of attention to detail, and it really takes me taking the time to invest in the human beings who work with me to more and more embody the qualities and the principles and beliefs that I embody, so that they can actually become the type of guardian and protector of the spaces we create and the people that we serve. You know, both, you know, I see us as, you know, I serve the people in my business first and foremost. I serve my employees, my staff, the people who work for me. They are my first customers. They are my first people who I am delivering value to and providing for. Yeah. And through delivering to them and serving them, they get to make this food and serve our customers who pay us money that keeps the business going. Yeah. But it is a big thing to ask for, because I'm already hitting the point where I can't directly support and mentor the people in my business one-on-one as much as I used to be able to. Yeah. And now that we're looking at expanding locations, I already had 3 opportunities to expand last year. one of them specifically with a lot of money attached to it. But ultimately I said no, because that doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
Like, that's not the important thing. The important thing is doing this thing right and having the right energy and the right approach and really doing it under our own 2 feet in our own power. Yeah. Because no matter how well-intentioned an investor might be or someone else, they don't understand the essence of my business like I do. And I feel a similar level of importance that you put on with your relationship with your business. Like, it's sacred. Yeah. It's so sacred and valuable, and like only you can really know that deep core soul of your business. Yeah. And that's how I feel as well. And so, you know, I've been very, very patient. I mean, we're 8 years in now, and we have one location and we do some mobile stuff, but it's like, you know, we're really still pretty small. We really still haven't, like, relative to all humans, just even in Phoenix, relatively few people even know about us, let alone the world. It's like almost nobody knows about us still.
That's so weird to me. Who doesn't? But I mean, I guess I'm in the circle, right? I'm in the know.
And we have awesome fans. We have awesome customers, awesome people who love us in an amazing community. And I just like to put it in perspective, like, relatively, like, nobody knows what Freak Brothers Pizza is. And really, and even the people who know us don't really know us. Or maybe they love us and they don't even fully understand why they love us. Because I'm still discovering that. I'm still discovering what this business is and what we're about and what we represent. But I just believe there is a way to scale while not only maintaining potency, but actually increasing it. Yeah. That it takes a lot of patience and dedication to staying very rooted and connected to the most, you know, ground level employees who run our business, who literally are making the pizzas. And it's like, it's never going to be above me to take out the trash, to jump on the line, to make a pizza, to take an order, to chat with the customer. Like, and I see so many CEOs of bigger companies, they're so disconnected from the actual core of what it is that they're doing, because they get so focused on numbers and profits and investors and all this stuff. And it's like, what is actually your business? Yeah. And I'm going to kind of like drop a bomb that maybe we won't have too much time to go into, but it just feels like a good kind of summarizing of how I feel about this whole thing, which is when I look at something like the pharmaceutical industry, I am actually in awe and amazement of the technological developments that we've made in order to be able to do what we do in an industry like that. It's pretty wild, and it's pretty like awe-inspiring, just the sheer advancement we've made. And I'm coming to a point of like, what really is this? What are we really doing here? Who are we actually serving? And what are the results we're actually getting? And it's as well-intentioned as probably we started out in this pursuit of medicine and pharmaceuticals. What is the root of what is the energy of that industry? Right now, the energy is perpetuating sickness and disease to the point where you're trying to keep people just alive enough to continue selling them something. It's not actually health. Right. There's no incentives for healthy people in the pharmaceutical industry. Literally, that industry would almost collapse if everybody was just all of a sudden healthy.
It would,
which, again, I don't want to make a judgment or that it's bad or wrong in and of itself. I think it's just gotten very, very off track and disconnected from the essence of what medicine is really about. Like, when I say the word medicine, I'm referring to like medicine for my soul, medicine for my body, like healing and vibrancy.
Healthy food, acupuncture,
being able to feel more alive, like more aliveness. It's like, I'm not trying to prolong a slow death. I'm trying to create aliveness. And it's a subtle but important energetic shift. Yes. And, you know, I kind of see a similar thing where it's like scaling a business. It's like, I hope we don't lose too much of our essence as we get bigger, so that we can get these whatever you're getting out of scaling.
It's an like, opposite approach. It's like, I don't want to achieve something that costs too much. Like, I don't want to get to a level that would dilute what I've got going.
Yeah, it's like there's a certain hoarding and grasping and holding on to, rather than like, as we grow, I want that to only increase the opportunity to emanate positivity, to emanate solutions, to bring and reach more people what we're doing, and increase what we're doing, increase the efficacy of what we get to actually offer people.
Yeah.
So yeah, just wanted to like throw all of that in there because I think it's a really interesting concept. And I think it also ties back to our personal self as well. It's like people, we're going through life trying to spend all of our good years accumulating these things so we can then retire when we're kind of like ready to be done anyways. It's just such a backwards weird thing. I'm like, why aren't we trying to create more aliveness now rather than for some 30, 40 years in the future? It's just such a weird, like the whole world is backwards to me right now.
Well, to touch on that really quickly, like with entrepreneurship, I feel like the new movement now is like retire by 30, like make all your, and it's like, I don't know if your 20s are really for like building your entire life and fulfilling your destiny and making all your money. Like, I don't really know if that's what, your young body is for. Like, I think youth is so fucking squandered, and like, I definitely squandered quite a bit of mine by being an anxious, entrepreneur. And I feel like now there's this whole like, this just like the idea, like I see this so much, whether it's like in TikTok or social media or whatever, people being like, I'm able to retire by 30 and I have a fleet of Ferraris and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I don't know. Like, yeah, I love the idea of, just getting it done so you can enjoy your life and live your life and not be a slave to money and capitalism and wealth accumulation. But I also think like we're doing a lot of rushing right now. We're like rushing ourselves to like make our money, fulfill our destiny, live our, get it all done and retire. And it's like, do you know what happens when people retire? They're bored. They're aimless. They're confused because they spent their whole fucking lives working for somebody else, chasing some American dream or whatever. They don't even know themselves. They don't know what they like to do. They end up realizing that their marriages are shams and that they've been unhappy for 40 years because they're finally alone with this person and have to actually spend time with them. Like, retirement's not all it's cracked up to be. So, like, I think there's something to really be said for what I see you doing, which is, like, I embrace slow growth. Like, I embrace conscious growth that I'm happy to be patient to experience so I can really live my life and sustain my business and sustain my relationships and be, like, a full person, So I think, when I started my business, it was very much at the height of like girl bossing, like boss babing, which now is like so cringe. People are like, don't call me a boss babe. And it's like, I don't know. That was big when I started my business, But there was all this like, girls make your own money, like hustle, like have a business and then have a side business and then have a side business for your side business. Like monetize every hobby you've ever enjoyed. Like that's fucked up, That was the fucked up mentality when I was beginning a business. Now we're in this kind of fucked up mentality of like, accumulate all your wealth in a fleet of exotic cars by the time you're 29, and that way you can fuck around for the rest of your life. And it's like...
And you can sit in your big empty mansion by yourself and be with your loneliness.
Exactly. So I think there's always going to be some misguided information that we're spoon-fed about entrepreneurship or medicine or whatever it is. And I think when we are conscious, that is when we experience peace and healing. So like, for instance, I hear you really being conscious, dedicated, present, mindful in your work. And the more that you are, the more payoff you experience, whether it's financial or just otherwise. And likewise, I'm finally enjoying my work when I'm approaching it consciously and having an experience of my business that's not defined by my income or the amount of people I work with or the whatever. Like, it's defined by having fun, like fulfilling my inner child, being playful, being creative, like doing things that just feel good now without worry about how much money it's going to make me or what I'm going to do. So I think the moral of the story is, as we approach whatever it is that we're doing, our relationship, our business, our healing journey, whatever, with consciousness, with mindfulness, with intentionality, with patience, it's so much more powerful. It's so much more potent. And we don't have to go back and do all this healing and like unfuck ourselves from like what we've gone through. Because I don't want to be angry at my business, or I don't want my business to be this thing that defines my self-worth. Like, my friends don't love me because I make a lot of money. My friends love me because I hype them up, because I care about them, because I'm loyal, because I'm honest, because I'm brutally honest, like, because I'm thoughtful, you know? Like, those are the things that people really value in me. And so I spent a full decade of my life so confused about who I was because I wasn't conscious. I was, you know, associating my worth with something that was completely separate from who I actually am. So consciousness, mindfulness, and truly, like, really doing regular check-ins. Do I like this? Does this make me happy? Can I begin to pass this off? Can I change this responsibility in some way so that I find it more enjoyable? Like, how can I create a better relationship between myself and this work so I don't have to disassociate and run away and feel resentment or anger or anxiety or whatever it is?
Wow, I love that.
Mic drop.
I feel like that was it.
I wouldn't drop the mic, though. It's expensive.
Well, it's also
and
kind of hard when it's,
I would pick it up and throw it down on the ground.
Mic slam.
Mic slam. I'm obsessed with that now. I'm going to say that from now on all the time. I just want to thank you so much for having me. I also want to throw this out there to your listeners that keep your eye on my Instagram, because whenever it comes out, I have a sick episode of a conversation I had with you on my podcast that I'm so excited to share. Felt so enlivened by that conversation. And I just want to thank you for creating this really healthy, safe, comfortable space for, like, honesty and vulnerability, because that's something I'm still regaining. Like, I'm trying to rebuild that muscle. And so being here has been, like, very healing, and I love you, and I'm just so grateful. And you do amazing things in this world.
Wow.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I receive all of that, and thank you so much for coming on. I so enjoyed our last two conversations. That was a nice matcha slurp.
I'm so sorry. Really messed up that
Don't
moment.
worry, we keep it raw here, so that will not be edited out.
Good.
Yeah.
I'll make it louder next time.
Please do.
Amazing. Yes, you're right. Back-to-back good conversations, which I think is all we're capable of. I can't imagine us having a bad conversation.
Honestly, this is, like, the kind of thing that gives... I was just talking to my therapist this morning. I'm like, what are the things that give me the most energy? I'm just like, really good podcast conversations, like, with my most amazing friends. Like, just, like, so blessed to be connected to such incredible human beings, such incredible souls. And I just have so much respect and admiration for you and the work that you do. And it felt so good to just really go there and be able to be honest and vulnerable about our journeys with entrepreneurship, you know, the light and the dark, because that's what life is, right? It's like life is many things at once. So it feels really good just to feel safe to share this space with you. So grateful for just your energy and presence in my life. And everyone, please go check out Zoey's podcast, her work, her Instagram. We'll link all of that in the notes and everything. Thank you so much for coming on. I feel honored, and I'm so excited for whenever the next one is.
Likewise. Thanks, friend.
Absolutely.